I work in the home and like my kids are kind of like my coworkers. Like, I wonder if my husband had a coworker who was just like, Mike.
Yeah, one sec.
Mike,
Yeah, one sec.
what are you doing for Thanksgiving?
Yeah, give me a sec.
When's Halloween? Is Halloween coming soon?
Yeah, let me just close out the spreadsheet real quick.
Are we going to have candy?
Okay, so let's record the intro now.
So what did Milkless? Because I think we start with the name.
Two dads, we love our kids, but then we also need them to know that we're like pretty cool and it's not like a wimpy podcast. So, hey, Milkless.
Hey, welcome. Hey,
Milkless. Call the audience, Milkless. What's up, Milkless? Max coming at you.
What if that's it? That's our first take. What's up, Milkless? On this episode of the podcast, we have our first guest. And holy shit, it's Caitlin Murray from Big Time Adulting. She's like a big deal. We're going to be talking to her about parental guilt, which is actually kind of something she's been fighting for her millions of followers for years now, just with this blend of humor and honesty and a real ability to articulate what it feels like when you're just getting your ass kicked as a parent. She's a great hang, so funny and so smart. Here we go.
All right, guys, on this episode of the podcast, beginning of season 2, we have Caitlin Murray with Big Time Adulting on. Super stoked to kick off the season this way. I mean, we absolutely love you. You think you're effing hilarious. You keep it real.
Oh my God. I'm just thinking about whatever comes to the top of my mind. You know, I mean, the kids, these fucking kids, they just provide endless content for us parents, right? So yeah, and just putting it out there, you know, in a real raw way. I feel like when I started my page, I was kind of like, can I do this? Like, is this a social media thing that anyone would ever like watch or do? Because every other like mom account I've ever seen is like curated and pretty. And I was like, you know what? I can't fucking do that. I'm going to do this. I'm going to come out here as I am and say what's on my mind. So that's what Big Time Adulting is.
It's awesome. I do. And we talked about this a little before, so sorry for making you repeat yourself, but I do, you know, so many of your posts take the form of like, I almost think of it as like a tough love pep talk. Have some grace for yourself. Get out there, you know, get yourself a snack. How often are you talking to yourself? How often are you trying to remind yourself to have grace for yourself?
Yes. Thank you for that question, Matt. And you're not being repetitive because I don't remember what happened 5 minutes ago. So
fantastic.
It's all good. This is all fresh to me right now. Yeah, I guess it is exactly that. Half of the time when I'm like coming up with an idea of something that is feeling relevant to me, it's because it's like a situation that I just went through on my own that I'm like, okay, I need to have this pep talk with myself right now. And I'm sure there's a bunch of other moms who are feeling the exact same way as me, or dads, you know, who are feeling this. And why don't let's say it. Let's remind everybody. Let's remind ourselves and everybody else at the same time, and have a snack.
I mean, like what a great thing though, because I mean, you see it on social media all the time, no matter what it is. It's just natural in human nature to want to put your best foot forward. And that's why I think social media can be so toxic, because a lot of people compare their blooper reel with somebody's highlight reel. And it's like, oh my God, I'm such a shitty parent because like, look at what this person's doing. I think what you do so well, and it's so fucking funny too, but like you nail that thing of like when you are on your knees crying in your bedroom closet, like literally in the depths of despair, somehow you make that seem normal. And a lot of times with dads, at least, guys don't really talk about that a lot. It's like, oh yeah, remember when you first had kids? It was like, Matt and I are kind of like sensitive, like theater dads. We also are athletes and are very strong boys. But
it's important that you know that we are strong boys. Okay, that's how we say it, because it sounds badass.
First things first, we are strong boys.
We're strong boys.
Can I just say, I didn't know where you were going with that for a second when you were like, when you're on your knees in your closet. I was like, what? Where? What, Max? What?
Where do you do it? Oh my God.
When the mailman comes to your door at 4:00.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, sorry.
No, when there's a new UPS driver and his muscles are bulging out.
And I look at him and I say, he is a strong boy.
What do they say in all the old detective stories? You open the door, got nothing on but the radio.
I've never never heard that one.
It's classic. Yeah. Anyways, when you're seated in your closet, however, yeah.
You guys are going to edit that part out, right? Anyway, go
edit
on.
in.
Edit in. Sounds good to me.
But so basically, like, we were so pumped about being a dad. I read all the books with my partner. Oh my God, I can't wait. It's going to be magical. And then it was like really fucking hard, especially the first 2 weeks, and then the next 3 months, and then the first 2 years. Obviously, there's moments of joy in there. But I remember going around to everybody like, yo, you always said like parenting is like the best thing in the world. It's so magical. But it's like, I'm just taking this, meat popsicle, keeping this meat popsicle alive.
Yeah.
The fuck? This sucks.
Yeah.
It is so hard.
Carrying around this hot sack of water all the time with me. And you guys are milkless. Can you even imagine if you had the milk?
Oh.
Yeah, that's a whole.
And the cocktail of hormones.
Oh, Jesus.
Like my wife is like a rock. She doesn't really cry. She's very tough. She's more of the tough guy, and I'm the fancy boy.
He's a strong boy too, but he's both. He's a strong, fancy boy.
I remember her crying coming out of the CVS like on day 4 after having our first kid, hysterically crying. I hadn't seen her cry in like 3 years. And she's like, I couldn't find the vitamin D drops. It's like, what is going on? My wife is different now with the baby and the lack of sleep. And then you say it to any parent and they're like, yeah, of course. It's a fucking shit show at the beginning.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's like, no one's talking about this.
Nobody said that before this happened. You don't want to give me like a little bit of heads up on this, a little fair warning before I got in this game. But I don't know. I think it's also one of those things. I don't know about you guys. I think that I still would have been as much of an idiot to think like it's going to be different for me. I'm going to be good at this. I know I am.
Yeah.
I think that like when I talk about that concept of like nobody really talking about this before you've had kids, like why didn't we hear about this before? I'm really only saying that to parents, like to people who have already been through this, because it's kind of funny and like you get it, right? And if you heard it before you became a parent, it would be like, yikes, like that sounds awful. And then you wouldn't know necessarily that there's just this like massive amount of magic and love that go along with it for some fucking reason. Who knows why? Because it is so goddamn hard that makes it all worthwhile.
Yeah. I do remember my mom, who was not my mom was a really good mom the older we got, but she was not like a baby mom. She's a lawyer, she's like, come on, like, let's have a conversation.
Get a job.
Get a fucking job. Yeah. But I remember her saying that all that like love and magic, it's just an attempt to correct the cognitive dissonance, because you spend so much fucking time just wiping this thing's ass. You have to love it that much or you just stop, or there would be such cognitive dissonance, your brain would just turn off. And I've started to see it that way, that the love and the magic, it almost follows the obligation. Like you feel it because of the obligation, because you're doing everything for this little thing.
Yeah.
That's why you get the good stuff. It's because you have to, or you'd throw them in the river.
Yeah.
100%. And going back to something you said earlier, Caitlin, like I'd never even put my finger on this. People do tell you that babies are hard, but they also say like it's going to be hard to have a good marriage and it's going to be hard to do X, Y, and Z. And when you're relatively successful in life, it's kind of like, oh yeah, babies are hard. Yeah, sure. For you, maybe.
For you, yeah.
I got this. Don't worry about it. My wife and I are like pretty good at stuff. Like,
yeah,
we got it. We got it. But then like day 7, literally thinking like, I'm barely surviving here. We're about to die.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're like, I want to go back. I want to go back. Yeah. What have I done?
Yeah.
What have we done?
You just don't find your limits that much in life. And then you have kids, and then you find your limit. And then once you've found your limit, your kid vomits on you. And then it's like, nope, more. Like, here's more.
Absolutely. It really like toughens you up like no other, right? Like just the physical kind of torture of those early days of parenting, which you've really never sustained for like so many nights in a row of having to stay up. Like I was a party animal in my 20s, living in New York City, going out till closing 4 a.m., getting up at 7:30 to get to work, like zero sleep. There was, though, the guarantee of sleep that next night. Like, it's the unpredictability of the sleep and the lack of consistency of ever getting to be able to catch up. You're just constantly, and I do feel like pushing yourself to new physical limits in that sense, like the complete lack of sleep, I think also really does expand your mental toughness. Like, what you're able to endure after you've become a parent is so much greater than what you probably thought you could ever do before, but you had no idea.
Yeah. Yeah. It's amazing what you can do when you don't have a choice. And with kids, so often you don't have a choice. So it's like, I don't have anything today, but I must. Like, I need to have something, even though I don't have anything. So here we fucking go.
You learn new things about yourself, which is kind of cool.
I do have a question, Caitlin. So, like, when you experience parental guilt, do you more often feel it from the perspective of like, oh, I handled this shitty and am I fucking up my kid? Or do you more often feel it from like, why am I not enjoying this? Is my internal experience of it somehow messed up?
I think it's more about my kids
Yeah.
when I think about guilt. Like, maybe it's all one and the same wrapped into one, because you're just kind of like, this isn't fun, or I'm lacking patience right now for a zillion reasons, and I just exploded on you for something that was, small, like getting your shoes on or whatever, but that is actually so fucking annoying when you've said it 5 times or whatever. That lack of control that I experience over my emotions sometimes when I'm like pushed to my limits with my kids is what makes me feel guilty. And at the same time, I'm a big proponent of saying this all the time, is like, just so everybody knows, like, I'm doing this. I'm pretty sure most parents are doing this at some point, like completely losing their mind with their kids, And if I think back on it also, like as a kid, I can remember, my mom losing her temper with us when we were being shitheads, I'm sure.
Mm-hmm.
And, I love my mom and she was a great mom. So like, that's my takeaway from it too. I'm like, okay, if I think about, and who knows, maybe we all have some like, personality traits and qualities about us that like are a result of being a little bit fucked up by things that happened in our childhood. But then it's like, it also what makes you who you are. And everybody's a little bit fucked up. So let's all take a little bit of solace in that.
Yeah. Yeah. Nobody comes out unscathed entirely.
Nobody.
And some of your coping mechanisms can end up being the most interesting things about you. I mean, funny can be an adaptation to deal with fucked up stuff about your family of origin,
Absolutely a defense mechanism. 100%.
And that's why I think what you're doing with Big Time Adulting, and what we're kind of trying to do with Milkless, is like make the crazy be a little less crazy. Because I felt the same thing. It's like, man, everybody's got to be snapping at their kids. I start talking with people. It's like, hey, you ever like fucking lose it on your kids? Here's what I did the other day. They're like, oh yeah, all the time. I fucking hate it. It's horrible. I should not do it.
Yeah.
But I do it all the time. When you don't know, Matt says this all the time. As humans, we used to parent with a village. We used to see how we all parented together all the time. So there wasn't this like siloed parenting approach where you kind of just do it by yourself and you see it and then you kind of feel like, oh, am I bad? Because we love our kids so much. It's so hard when you love something so much and they're so fucking annoying. And then you have those feelings and it's like, how do you reconcile that?
Yeah. And I've never met a kid who wasn't fucking annoying sometimes,
They're a little selfish.
Like they're all cute and they're all great, but like every kid out there is a little bit annoying at some point,
Yeah.
If you don't find your kid to be a little annoying, sometimes I think that you're probably really annoying,
Yeah.
Or you're just a fucking doormat. Like, or you're just so broken by life that you're just like, no, it's fine. It's fine. Yeah, there are times that I will make the conscious decision, like, I'm going to get mad at my kid now because she just needs to know that's not cool.
Yeah.
Like, I don't think she should never see me angry because sometimes she's got to learn that certain ways you treat people will make them angry.
Yeah. I like to sometimes say like that when you are in a place where you're experiencing a normal range of human emotions, some of them extreme, and anger being one of them, and you show that side of yourself to your kids, like you're giving off a little bit of that, like, don't fuck with me energy, right? And there's going to come a time and a place where you're going to want your kids to know how to give off a little bit of that don't fuck with me energy. And here's how you do it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Exactly.
Yeah, you're modeling having a spine. Yeah.
Yeah. And then if I, like went over the line or I was like too harsh or anything, I do always like find myself apologizing now, which I think is something that really separates us from the generation prior to us. I don't really ever remember my parents apologizing to my brother or I for anything. Like maybe it was shown to us in other ways that they were sorry or that we were forgiven, but flat out like you were right and I was wrong, or just I was wrong to do this. And to acknowledge exactly what it was is something that I don't think a lot of people from our generation ever grew up hearing. And it is really validating to hear that. So I do try to do that when it is, due.
Yeah. And a lot of times it's like, you were wrong. I was also wrong. And then it's always hard because it's like, yeah, that thing that you did, that really sucked, but I lost it too much. And that sucked even more. And I actually have more control over that than you do, and et cetera, et cetera.
I know, because you kind of want to be like, that was wrong of me. But
yeah.
Well, sometimes you do need to still have that lesson, but sometimes you're just putting a little parental stank on it. And it's like, listen, daddy should not have yelled and kind of freaked out there. That was not okay. But if you ever fucking do that again, it's like, oh, okay, dad, relax.
Yeah.
Relax.
Yeah. Just a little ... However, do you feel like because this is one of my biggest sources of guilt as a dad, do you feel like when you get angry, it is scary to your kids?
I hope so.
I hope it isn't, but I know it is.
I know that they're scared. I can see it in their eyes. I'm like, oh, that worked.
Yeah.
Listen, it's real life. Like sometimes I use my Batman voice because sometimes my Batman voice gets results, I'm like, I'll say it 3 times nice, and then you're going to get Batman voice. And then everybody's in fucking trouble. Get in the car.
That's good. Yeah. Yeah. You should go low.
Oh, it's so good. So good. And what Matt's taught me a little bit, because I was just kind of willy-nilly. Matt's really good at like off-gassing in anger, is like letting him know, almost like in Seinfeld, where like Costanza's like, George is getting upset. I'm getting upset. So like, I'll like start to tell them now, like, hey guys, like dad feels like he might cry or scream. And I don't want to do that, guys.
Yeah.
It's coming. It's coming. And then all of a sudden Hulk comes up. I told you.
Yeah. Totally. That warning's good though, because I'll be like, I'm not mad now.
Keep it up though.
So you see what happens, Larry.
But also, and this came up in a couple studies for our anger episode about that actually anger isn't super bad for kids to see. It's unpredictable behavior on the parents' part. So sometimes if there's outside stimuli where like, oh, I got a work email or something comes in, it's kind of stressful, and they do something annoying that normally I would just be like, oh, come on, bud, like, and I'd handle it more appropriately. And out of nowhere, I'm like, dude, what are you doing? Leave me alone. Can't you see I'm doing something? That's something I want to work on because it happens, but like the unpredictable outside shit.
So I think that's like one of those scenarios where you'd be like more than happy to like lay down and be the doormat and full on apologize. Like, I want you to know, like, what happened was I read something that upset me or made me stressed out. And I am so sorry that I blew up on you in that moment. That was not your fault,
Yeah.
Yeah. God, it is nice to have the apology out there as I mean, it's not like it lets you off the hook for fucking up, but
well, so it's a very hot thing on the parenting circuit right now, this notion of repair.
Yeah.
And the first time I had like really heard about this was from a child and maternal psychologist named Tanya Kotler. And I've had like an Instagram relationship with her for a while. And she was a guest on my podcast at one point or whatever. But it's this notion of rupture and repair. And we all go through like tons and tons and tons of these moments throughout the course of any given day with our kids. And that even if we only get it right, like 30% of the time, that's enough to develop like a very healthy child-parent attachment. So like, it's this huge like weight off your shoulders to know there are all these little ruptures that take place throughout the course of the day. Some of them are small, like, just like a change of your tone or like a quick annoyance or what did you do that for? But that there's, as long as you continue to repair those little moments, that it's all good.
Yeah.
Yeah. My wife's a therapist and she quoted that 30% stat too. And I was like, oh, that's all? I feel like I'm at least at 35. Like I'm doing real good.
Yeah.
It is funny too, like that constant process of like rupture and repair. kids are so adept at that. Cause like frequently I'll have a conflict with my eldest daughter, my almost 6-year-old. She'll be mad. She'll storm off. And then 3 minutes later, she comes out of her bedroom and she's like, "Hey, Daddy, you want to play?" And I'm like, I need more time from what just happened.
I'm not ready yet.
I'm not ready for you right now. But they're just like fucking back in it.
Totally.
Do you ever get that thing where you kind of, you know, they need a little bit more of a lesson, but I'm just always so forward looking and I just want everything to be copacetic. Like, I think I was like the peacemaker of my family growing up. So like the minute they like apologize and everything's chill, I'm like, I can't just go right back. They just fucking did World War III against me. They shot a nuke. I diverted it. It was going to destroy all of civilization. And they just want to play Monopoly now?
And now you want to hug?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm not ready to touch you.
I'm not. Yeah. I would like my space.
But the thing is, I do want to touch them. I do want to hug them. But then I'm like, am I just reinforcing bad behavior that all you need to do is fucking like pull a gun on somebody and then just say sorry and hug. And then like 10 seconds later, it's like all back to normal.
Well, it's also just like going back to that, like how actually like malicious could a kid really be with what they're doing, right? So it's like, yeah, that really, really chapped my ass, that behavior of yours back then. But like, did you really mean it? Like they probably didn't, you know, it's just like, I don't think they're necessarily sophisticated enough to.
And you don't want to be a petty adult that's like doing silent treatment bullshit.
Oh no, I think that's actually the worst. I think the silent treatment from anyone is like, by the way, if you're looking to get under my skin, anyone who's listening out there, give me the silent treatment because I can't handle it.
Oh, same.
I'm like, Talk about it right now.
Yeah.
Let's get this over with.
The only time I'll try not to is if both parties are like completely sloshed.
Yes.
And it's like, I'm like tomorrow.
Yeah.
It's the only time.
That is a smart policy.
I learned that way too late in life. Babe, I want to go deep.
And another thing. And
you know what? You're kind of nasty. So I don't know. What are the things that are like, that really just fuck you up? That like really are just like where you get overwhelmed with the kids? Like for like myself, it's like if I have all 3 kids for a 3-day weekend by myself, I know that I'm going to be walking into a buzzsaw and there's going to be some moments where, okay, George is getting upset. Like, are there times where you know these are the hardest times where you're going to get possibly overwhelmed and lose it?
Yeah, the morning is always a bit of a pressure cooker for me. Getting out the door, getting everybody's lunches made. First of all, I hate making lunches. Everybody eats something different. You know, what I should be doing is probably saying, fuck your preferences. I'll decide what everybody's eating from now on. But like lunch was such the highlight of my day as a student in grade school and whatever, that like I couldn't bear the thought of not giving my kids what they wanted for lunch. So that's off the table. I'm obviously going to keep making them whatever they want for fucking lunch every fucking day.
Also just like the lack of appreciation. Like, I don't like cheese, Mom.
I know.
It's like,
I liked it last week, but now I fucking hate it. Now it's different. I'm older.
Or I even liked cheese yesterday. I liked cheese yesterday, but I don't like cheese today. I'm like, you know what? You and your schizo desires can go fuck themselves.
A little bit.
So anyway.
A little bit.
You're talking a big game, but you got 3 different lunches.
But then I'm like, okay, well, what would you like instead? And 3 different breakfasts. So it's not even like that as much. It's just like, I realized this morning too, one of the things is that like when you're doing these things, like say I'm making lunches and I've got 2 kids also asking me different types of questions at the same time, then I start to feel like, okay, I'm trying to focus on this task. It's not mindless. I'm figuring out what to put in here. Now I've got a question coming from over here and a question coming from over there. And I think that generally speaking, at times where I'm feeling incredibly overstimulated by my kids, that I start to feel like I'm going to lose it.
And when there's a time constraint.
Yes. And a time constraint. Yeah, exactly. So that's the whole pressure cooker where I think I would tend to like lose my temper more, or just even not even that I'm like losing my temper every morning like that, because I do this every day, right? But I'm like a little bit pissed off the whole time.
Yeah.
I'm a little bit like annoyed or just stressed, like watching the clock and making sure. Even like this morning, I got my kids, like everything was done. Like I led them to the water. Here, take a drink. Like I was like, go outside, get on your bike, be ready for our neighbor to come by. You know, he's going to pick you up here in a second. And then my kids are in the garage and I've moved on to like looking at an email or whatever. So I've sort of been like, okay, I'm done with them. I've gotten them
Yeah.
from A to B and now they're off. And then they're having like a 15-minute conversation about scorpions in the garage. And I'm like, you're fucking late now.
Yeah.
You were ready to go, and now you've just like you know, like you just can't even count on them to be like, okay, I have to leave, and this is the next step. Like even when you think you're done, your job is done.
Yeah.
What happened, guys?
Yeah.
What happened?
What happened?
I thought we were all on the same team here. I thought we were on the same page. I thought everything was going according to plan.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I have this friend who has 5 kids, and I'm always kind of like in awe, like of how do you do this? And she was like, you know what? I actually stopped worrying about being on time every day. If my kids are a couple of minutes late to school every day, I really don't care. I don't want to be the mom who's like constantly losing my shit in the morning. And I was like, wow, I really would like to adopt that mindset.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because you know what she didn't say too, that was also like this sort of like freedom. She wasn't like, well, I set aside extra time for myself to prepare the lunches at 4:00 in the morning or, you know,
Yeah.
like things like that,
Yeah.
like that I don't want to do. And I'm like, well, okay, I could deal with them being a little late.
It's like, it's not the end of the world. It's not worth me like fucking losing it on them.
Yeah.
Why? Every morning. It's like, Jesus, Dad.
Yeah.
Why do you always do this?
Yeah.
Always. Yeah.
What kind of a person?
Yeah.
What kind of a kid?
You never, ever do this on time. No, I know. It's like one of those things. I think even if you do want to get them to school on time, just even having that mindset, though, going into it being like, okay, if they are a minute late, that's fine. Let's try
Yeah.
not to lose our shit.
Yeah.
Right. Because I think like when you do have those feelings of like guilt or whatever that happen, I think it's mostly good parents who are feeling those feelings. It's not the shitty parents that worry about if they're being good enough parents all the time, right? They're just
Right.
probably like dum-dums
Yeah.
that don't actually give a shit, that aren't actually there, you know, whatever. But that guilty feeling that we get as parents is like a sign of the fact that you are probably a pretty good parent.
I mean, and there's also like the difference between mom guilt and then general parental or dad guilt. With mom guilt, like I talked with my wife about it, women or moms are guilty about different things because of society putting a lot more pressure. And so there's that. For example, my wife will feel a little guilty if like the kids eat like shit all weekend, or if, you know, we go out to a party and stay out till 11 o'clock and the kids are all like exhausted. Guys don't really take a lot of heat for that. And so there's different types of guilt. My guilt more revolves around not being the CEO of the household, where my wife manages when we need more toilet paper and, you know, keeping the pantry stocked and when the next pediatrician visit is. I feel somewhat guilty about that. Like, am I not pulling my load?
So you're saying a lot of your guilt comes from like just like it's more guilt about how hard it is for your spouse than like how you're being with your kids.
Yeah, I feel like dads get a lot of passes because the bar for a father is so low historically, coming from the 1950s to today. I am nailing it. If people watch me, they'd say, wow, he's such a good dad.
It's interesting that you said like from the 1950s or whatever. And I feel like that is sort of this like decade that we kind of look back to in a way of where we conceptualize like the perfect image of a housewife. And that's maybe why you're saying 1950 or whatever, because, you know, men have taken on a traditional gender role in their own way versus women since for a long time, like well before the 1950s, right? But there was that like concept of like little Susie Homemaker that came about in the 1950s, I would say. And like, this is what a perfect housewife looks like. And she does everything with a fucking smile on her face. And she also looks great every day. And she puts on a skirt and has her hair done and is wearing makeup, and dinner is on the table when her husband walks through the door. And the kids are well behaved and groomed and sit at the table and we eat like a family all together. And there's just this like highly visual like image that I think we all have of that time. And then that is like what has been sort of imposed into the minds of women as what a perfect wife or mother looks like, right? So in a world that's completely changed where, you know, most women are working mothers, 72% of women are working, and there's no really such thing as anyone saying working dad, right? It's just a working mom. And in today's world where that is the case and where like 2/3 of women are breadwinners in their houses, they're still trying to uphold this image of perfect wife and mother, because it's like what their mothers modeled for them and for us. So women are just expected to take on so much. I mean, you're expected to be a mom like you don't work and work like you're not a mom. And all of that. And there's just a lot of like, you walk into somebody's house and it's a mess. It's like that woman does not keep a clean home. Nobody's like, that dad's a fucking slob, you know?
Right.
So it's just like there's a lot of societal pressure on women. This is a question that I'm going to ask you guys. I'm going to flip the script a little bit for when you come on my show, but there is this like insane amount of pressure on women from a lot of angles, and I think it goes back to the fact that we don't fully value the role of a mother in society. So like that role has been like diminished in value in a lot of ways, so that like that is sort of portrayed for women to be easy. It's easy because they're maternal and they're a woman and they know what to do, right? Women just know what to do when they have babies. Like, this is so easy for you. You're a girl. And it's not. It's fucking hard. And it's a completely new learning experience for women as well. And I think just that mentality that it's supposed to be easy for us has made men maybe historically feel like they don't need to pull weight in those categories as much up until recently, where like the narrative has fully shifted and, you know, men and fathers are doing more than they ever have before and they're more involved. But there's still a good chunk of the way to go in terms of, you know, equity.
Yeah. Yeah. There's also this way in which, like, because so few households are able to be single income households, it's like, hey, women, you better go out and make a living, but don't fucking slack on your mom duties. And then much more recently, it's like, hey, dad, you better fucking show up as a parent, but don't stop making that money. And I'm not trying to create an equivalency of that, because I do think you're right. The expectations on dad have not caught up to the expectations on mom or even close, but we're just making it harder on everybody all the time. And so you end up feeling like you're kind of failing at everything a lot of the time.
Yeah, it's like we're all sort of set up to fail in this modern world of parenting.
Yeah.
Because it's just so much. It's so intense. Another like answer to the question you had, what stresses me out or what makes me feel like I'm really going to lose it, is not necessarily so much to do with something my kids like did or said anymore, because I'm finding them to be a lot more enjoyable and easier the older that they get.
Yep.
But it's got to do a lot with their schedules. Like there's so much that's happening that's like, it's requiring me to be in two places at the same time. And now I have to figure out how to rectify this because there's so much fun and it's almost daily. And I'm like, I don't know what to do. Like, I need two of me to successfully run this household.
And that's the type of stuff that no one sees and no one really appreciates. Even your partner. Like, when my wife does that, it takes you saying something like that to really, like, because you're the only one in the air traffic control room moving all the planes, feeling that ongoing pervasive stress of like, and then you pull it off. It's like a whole fucking movie. There's like a montage and it's like, oh my God, Caitlin got the kid to karate and soccer. And it's like, you look around, it's like, there's no one there clapping.
Is anybody? Yeah.
Anybody see that?
At least when you kick ass at work, they give you money, you know? And like when you kick ass at being a mom, your kid just gets in the car after your tightrope act and they're like, do you have my juice? And you're like, no, I don't have the juice. And they're like, way to go, mom.
You suck, Mom. I hate you, Mom.
God damn it, Mom.
Yeah.
I'm thirsty. I'm thirsty now is what's happening.
Well, yeah. And also, like, this was on one of your previous podcast episodes, Caitlin. One of your guests said something about, like, people just assume, like, mom, it's, like, free. It, like, costs a metric fuck ton of time and energy.
It goes beyond even just being, like, hard, like, constant. You know, it's, like, kind of never stops unless the child is napping. And then when the child is napping, you know, there's a host of shit that has to get done around your house and stuff. But what I found to be, I think, like, one of the hardest parts about that is just the mind-numbing boredom of being home with a baby or a toddler that gives very little back to you in terms of mental stimulation. And in today's world, like where you were commenting on earlier, like you're not raising children in a village anymore. You're in the silo of your own home and your nuclear family, very much so. And you're not necessarily surrounded by a support system or a multi-generational family system that's in place. So yeah, it's boring to be home with your kids. You're trapped, you know?
Yeah. I've never had a work day that made me feel like, have I lost my mind completely? That happens when it's just you solo with the kid, because they'll fucking gaslight you or they'll, like, whatever it is. And you're just like, I don't know if I've totally lost my mind. I've lost my bearings on everything.
Well, I've just been asked the same exact question 7 times in the last 10 minutes. And I don't know how many more ways I can answer this before I go absolutely fucking bonkers, you know?
Because with any other person, if Matt asked me the same thing 7 times, I would say, Matt, what is your fucking problem? Like, don't fucking ask the same question. What is wrong with your fucking head?
Yeah. Yeah, God, I did this. So there's a thing that we do sometimes with our 5-year-old where my wife and I both do this, where we get really mad. Before we, like, blow up, we'll just go, like, just to communicate, like, I'm kind of losing my shit. But the other day I had my 1-year-old for a long time, and she was just like, she's at the phase where she just wants to touch everything and then put it in her mouth. So we just walk around the house with her just going, just with the, like, open palm gesture. Give me that. And finally I was like, oh, I need to tell her I'm getting frustrated. So I, like, looked at her, I go, and she just fucking burst into tears because she was like, Dad's yelling at me. He sounds like a monster. And of course, you know, like, I felt like I asked for whatever the next hour. But yeah, you can't, with kids, you can't in the same way to have that moment where you're like, what are you doing to me? You're killing me. You're killing me right now.
Or just saying your name on repeat. I did do a reel about that one time. If, like, I was like, I think about my kids, like, you know, I work in the home and, like, my kids are kind of like my coworkers. Like, I wonder if my husband had a coworker who was just, like, in his face all day, just like, Mike. Mike.
Yeah, one sec.
Mike.
Yeah, one sec.
What are you doing for Thanksgiving?
Yeah, give me a sec.
When's Thanksgiving?
Yeah,
When's Halloween? Is Halloween coming soon?
Yep, just finishing something up. Just give me a sec.
What are you going to be for Halloween?
Yeah, let me just close out this spreadsheet real quick.
Are we going to have candy?
How many pumpkins are there in America, do you think? I guess my last question would be, like, what do you, to keep yourself out of the, like, the shame zone, the self-shame zone of, like, I'm sucking at this. Like, what are the things you do to remind yourself that you're a good parent having a bad moment?
I started a social media account called Big Time Adulting. And then I went out there and I put it all out there for anyone in the world to see. And then I wait and just read people's comments. I'm like, yes, I'm not alone. Everybody feels like this. Pro-parenting tip. When on the verge of a mental breakdown, when all hell has broken loose, when shit's piling up around the house and it starts to resemble an episode of Hoarders and your kids are so far up your ass you think you might need a doctor to get them out of there, take a second, exit the room, and strongly consider the idea of leaving your family. Let it bring you to tears because you know you'd actually be friggin' miserable without them. Then get back out there and resume your role as CEO of those little dickheads, okay? You've got this. Laugh it off. Now get yourself a snack.